Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of Coding Squads. So this week we're going to be looking at actually planning how to write your code. So this is quite an important skill because we don't want to just go straight into writing code because it can get very complex very quickly and we can sort of get lost in what we're actually doing. So it's always important to spend a little bit of time or potentially quite a lot of time, depending on the size of the system you're building. Thinking about how you're going to implement how you the system, how you're going to solve this problem or whatever it is you're doing. So we're going to be looking at how to break down sort of a problem specification into simple steps that we can follow. Thinking about how we can take something quite complex and sort of break it down into stages. So this is what we're going to do in stage 1, this is what we're going to do in stage 2, and stage 3, and so on. So breaking it down into like the bare basics and then building. That's how to make it manageable. So we'll look at how to do that exactly. We're going to look at how to use random numbers in Python because in the example I give that we're going to plan, we're going to look at creating a random number guesser game. So that will use random numbers in Python. So we'll have a look at the syntax for that and how to use those. And then at the end of the lesson, I will introduce a small task that ideally you can go off and have a go yourselves before next week's lesson and see how far you can get with that. We might also have a look at planning that a little bit if we have time. And as always, last 15 minutes of the session, if we have any questions, that's the dedicated time for that, but if not, we'll continue with the content. Okay. So I will just share my screen. It's working now. Yeah. Okay. Right, so let's look at random numbers in Python. So as always, if you do have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the chat. If they're directly related to what we're doing at the moment, I'll answer them when I look at the chat. If they're more general, then I'll sort of save them until the end. Okay, so anyway, random numbers in Python. So firstly, you're going to have to import random. Now, what this does is it basically imports a package called random, which has all the functionality for random numbers that you need. So packages in Python, this is one of the standard ones that Python developers created, but you can also get like custom made ones for specific things, and you can read more about that online. But installing packages is quite easy. These ones come pre-installed with Python, but sort of custom ones and ones that aren't standard Python libraries, you will just have to use something called pip to install, and it usually looks like pip install and then the library name there. But don't worry about that just yet. We won't need to install any packages for this because random is built in. But that's useful for further on down the line when you're using other packages in your program. Anyway, so how do we generate a random number? So let's say we want to generate a random number between 1 and 100. We would do random, the package name, and then dot, and we're accessing the randint function in this. So randint takes 2 parameters. So the number to generate from, the number to generate to. So these will both be integers. So here, this generates a random number between 1 and 100. And let's store that in num1, say. Okay. We could also generate another random number. And even if we write the same line, this may give a different number. It will very likely give a different number for num2 because this is running it again. So to generate two different numbers, you have to call the function again. So if we did num2 equals random.randin again, this would rerun the function and we generate a new number to be stored in num2. So you have to run this line of code to generate number. Okay. Right, so we generated a random number there. This is pretty much all we'll be doing with regards to random numbers. You can take it further, but for purposes of what we're doing, this is fine. So we got this number. Let's introduce the problem we're going to have a look at. So we're going to do a guess the number game. And basically how this game works is we generate a random number between, let's just say 1 and 100 for the moment. Now, this will get a bit more complex, and what I'll do is I'll give you the sort of more complex specification, because if you are a developer, you will likely receive sort of the end product that a company is looking for. And you need to be able to think, how are we going to split this into stages? How are we going to break this problem down? Because you can't just attempt it straight away, because some problems are very, very big. And it would become very, very complex if you jump straight into it. So the end solution that we want to create is one where we have different levels for this game. So we have, like, let's say we have levels 1 to 10. And each level increases the range of numbers that the number could be between by 2. So by a factor of 2. And we have a score that is added to depending on how quickly the number is guessed. So for level 1, it could be that we have one guess gives 100 points, 2 guesses give 50 points, 3 guesses 25 points, and so on. So we can see that the number of points halves with each extra guess. And then with level 2, we double the points. So 200 points for 1 guess, 100 points for 2 guesses, 50 points for 3 guesses, and so on. So it's still halves. And then level 3, going to double the points again. So just like we double the range of numbers as well. So you want to maximize the number of points. And let's say we have a user starts with, let's say the user starts with 100 points, and each try costs, say, 25 points. So if you have so if you had 4 tries and you got 0 points in each, you would be out of points. Obviously that will be, you will get some points depending on how many guesses you take, but eventually if you don't guess very well, you may run out of points. So the aim is to basically keep going for as long as possible, or to get as many points as possible. So after each, just to clarify, that's each game. After each game, we ask the user if they want to play again and what level they want to choose. Okay. We should clarify that with this game, after each guess, the user is told if their number is higher or lower. Than their guess. Okay. So what we've got here is quite a complex specification. So we've got quite a lot of detail here, and it's quite a complex game at first. So what we want to do, instead of just jumping into this straight away, we want to think, okay, what is the most basic random number guesser game we could make? So for those watching live, how could you make the simplest game possible? Just describe to me what is the bare basics of this game. I've changed this to dark mode because I realised that the text might be a bit difficult for some people to read. So it should be a little bit nicer with this now. Okay. Right. Okay. So I think I'll help you all out a little bit here. So let's scroll down the page a little bit. So let's make this version 1. Now, if you strip everything down, this is a number guesser game. So we have to ask the user for an input, and it's specifically an integer input for the number they think it is. If the number is higher, so if the guess is higher than the actual number, we output higher. If the guess is lower than the number, we output lower. And this continues until the user guesses the number correctly. And I should put here, we randomly generate a number between 1 and 100. And once the number is guessed correctly, we output correct and the game ends. that is version 1 of our program. That is the most basic version of the program we can have. There's no scoring system. There are no levels. It's the bare bones of the game. There's none of these extensions. Okay. So what we've got there is a clear plan of how to do this. We've got essentially some pseudocode, so kind of like code but written in English as a description. So on line 23, we need to randomly generate a number between 1 and 100. We've already done that. So let's copy that down here. Okay. And then we need to ask for an input. Now, I think I went through this briefly a few weeks ago. So just as a reminder, how we do this is like we'll have the variable name on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side we have the input function, and we have a prompt inside these circular brackets, and we use quotation marks to show that this prompt is a string. So we're going to ask enter your guess. Okay. And it says if the guess, so if guess is higher than the number, so greater than none, and then if it is, we output higher. So we know we need to use print, and then in the brackets we put higher. And then we have if the guess is lower than the number. So for this, we wouldn't use an if statement, we'd use an elif. So if the guess is not greater than the number, and instead it's less than the number, print higher. And then else, if it's not higher and it's, sorry, I meant to put lower. If it's not higher and it's not lower, then it must be equal to the guess. And there we go. Now there is one thing missing here. It needs to continue until the user guesses the number correctly. So what data structure do we need here when we're continuing doing something over and over? Not data structure, programming construct. Okay, if no one is sure, then I'll say. So we're going to have a loop here. So if you recall, we have two different types of loops. We have for loops and we have while loops. So essentially, for loops we use when we know the number of iterations. And iterations basically means how many times the loop is going to continue. And while loops used for anything really. So in this case, we don't know the number of iterations this is going to take, so it depends on the user's guess. So therefore we have to use a while loop. So we have to say while the user hasn't guessed it correctly, essentially. So the perfect thing for this would be to use a Boolean flag. So a Boolean variable, if you recall, has either a value of true or false. So let's say correct is false. And we say while correct equals false, we're going to do all this stuff. And then when we print equal, we can set correct to be true, and the loop should end. Okay. So let's look and see if this works. So let's guess 45. Probably which line is that? Yeah. So remember, we're expecting an integer, so we need to specify that this input is an integer by putting this int around it. So it's lower than 45, so let's go 20, lower than 20, let's go 10, 5. Okay. So what's gone wrong here? So if the guess is greater than the number, then it should print higher. Let me just print what the number actually is. Have we got anything above here? No. Okay. So let's say it's 20, the guess is 67. Got my higher and lower the wrong around, that's why. So if the guess is bigger than the number it is, we need to say it's lower because too high. So let's just make this clear. Too high, too low. Let's get rid of this. So guess 50, it's too high. 25, too low. 37, too low. 44, too low. 47, too high. 46, too low. 45, too low. That doesn't seem possible. Okay, so what's gone wrong here? So we've said if guess is greater than the number, then we print too high. If guess is less than the number, then we print too low. And then it should get to this else part when it's equal to it. Okay. Well, that was very lucky. Okay, it seems to be working now. Let's guess 46. Oh, okay. Can anyone spot what I've done wrong here? What's going on? And yeah, with Mohammed, I haven't done elif guess equals none because else would just be that condition anyway. Because if it's not greater than, it's not less than, then it must be equal to. But there is a problem with my code. Can anyone see what the issue is? So look at the print statements as well, because that should give it away what's going on here. Okay. If everyone's a bit unsure then, so the issue here is it's re-evaluating at a random number. So on line 27, it's inside of the while loop. So we keep doing num equals random.randin every time. So we can see here we've generated 46, then we generated 84. So of course, if the number keeps changing, we're not going to be able to guess it, or not very easily anyway. So this needs instead to go outside of the while loop. It needs to happen before the while loop begins. So we generate it once, and then don't generate it until the next game. Okay. If anyone has any questions about exactly why that generated a random number every time, just put them in the chat. I'm happy to explain that further. But let's just make sure this works now. So it gets 50, so it should be 45. So yeah. And it works correctly. Okay. So yeah. Careless mistakes still happen really, even with practice, although they don't happen to me as much as they used to. Because I think starting out, you'll make a lot of silly mistakes like this, and you'll still make a lot of silly mistakes. But as you practice more, you should be able to identify these mistakes quicker, really. Okay. Right, if anyone has any questions, I'm into the Q&A time now. So any general questions you can put in the chat. I will just continue with this. We'll look at sort of this, what the version 2 could be. Feel free to get your questions in while I do that as well. And I'll stop if there are any questions. Okay. So version 1 is just the bare basics. Now version 2, probably how to make that more advanced is to add a second level. So on this second level, what we're going to have is we are going to change the range of numbers by a factor of 2. So it should be from 1 to 200 now. We doubled the range. We are also going to add a point system. So these are the two things we're going to do here. So we're just going to focus on setting one extra level for now. Let's make this a bit simpler. Let's just add the point system in version 2. And then in version 3, we will look at having multiple levels. Okay. So with this point system, as we said before, we're going to have on level 1 100 points for one guess, 50 points for 2 guesses, 25 points for 3, and then we'll keep halving it and halving it. So essentially, we need to know how many guesses has the user taken. And what we do is we do 100 divided by the number of guesses. And this gives us the number of points. And we want to add these points to our total. And we also want to take 20 points off every game because it costs the user 20 points to play. I think we said 25 actually, so we'll do that. Okay. And there's one final thing. After each game, so we'll now allow for multiple games to take place. After each game, the user should be asked if they want to continue or withdraw their points. Okay. Right, so we've got a few things here. So these are the extra steps. So we need to take off, we need to have a points total. We need to take 25 points off at the start of every game. We need to track how many guesses the user has taken. Okay. So let's define some variables at the start. So if we look up here, what variables do we need to define before the game starts? So we'll just move this up here for everyone to see. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, perfect. So that's a good solution for the first version. So that's really good. Yeah. If anyone has any questions about what we did in version 1, feel free to put them in the chat. So I don't want to rush through everything if people want to spend more time going over things, but I also just don't want to sit in silence. So if no one's got any questions, I'm happy to continue with continue on with this. Okay, I'm going to assume that you want to keep going then, but if not, just message in the chat any questions you've got. I can get to them and answer them. Okay, so just going back to these variables then. So I think we've really got two variables here. We've got the number of guesses. Let's define outside here. So guesses will start at 0. And we've also got a total. So like total number of points. And this is going to start at, did we say how many it would start at? I think we should probably start at, let's say 100 points. Yeah, I think we said that earlier. So we're going to set total to be 100. And then after each game, we say, okay, how many guesses have they taken? And we add that to the total. So we do total plus guesses, 100 divided by guesses. But also at the start, we need to do total equals total minus 25, as we take 25 points off at the start of every game. Okay. But what we're missing here is how many guesses the user takes. This is a bit more complicated, so we need to find this. So we've set it to 0. Now, when do we add to guesses, and how much do we add each time to guesses? Okay. So what we want to do here is we want to add 1 to guesses at the end of each iteration. So after we've made each guess, we add 1. Okay. Now, the final thing we're missing is this question. After each game, the user should be asked if they want to continue or withdraw their points. So this is going to be another loop, because we have this repeated thing of repeatedly run each game. And this loop continues until they choose to stop. So at the end of each game, what we're going to have is a question. So we'll let choice equals input do you want to continue? And it's always good to specify like yes or no. So we'll just do y or n. So they're expected to input y or n. Now if choice, and it's double equals, remember, because you're comparing two values. So if choice equals y, then we don't do anything. So actually there's no point in putting that if statement. But if choice equals n, then we do something. And we end the loop. So I haven't used this before, this break keyword. And we can use this to break out of a loop in Python. So this is quite useful. So what we want to do here is we want to have a while true loop. And this is a special kind of while loop. Let's just move some stuff in here as well. Okay. So what's this while loop doing? It's basically saying keep going forever. Now, the only reason this stops is because we have this break keyword. That is the only way to finish this while loop. So this loop will continue forever until choice equals n. However, there is another way of this loop ending. So if we look at the start, I should have noted this down as well, that when the user runs out of points, so I think I mentioned this earlier, maybe then, okay. When the user runs out of points, the game will end. So we'll have to add an extra if statement down here. So what could this if statement look like? Yeah, with the total minus 25, basically every time you play the game, it costs 25 points. Because otherwise the person's points would just go up and up and up. So we want to make it so that that can't happen, and potentially you could run out of points. So what would this if statement look like to basically say if you've run out of points? Okay. So basically what we want to do is at the start of this loop, we say if points is less than or equal to 0 after, total. This is after taking 25 off the total. Let's put it outside here. then we're going to break, and we'll put an error message saying, like, you have run out of points. Okay. So let's look at our requirements for version 2. We've said take 25 points every game. We've done that. We track how many guesses the user has taken, and then we generate the points depending on that, and we add this to total. After each game, we ask if the user wants to continue or leave. If they say no, then it breaks out and the game ends. We start at 100 points, we've said that, and when the user runs out, the game ends, we've said that. So if total is negative or 0, then the user must have run out of points. That's it. Okay. Right, let's just check this works okay. So it's too high. Cool. And let's continue. Let's not continue. Should also say how many points the user has as well. That's one other thing. So you finish with, and let's put the number of points like this. So you finish with, and then plus the total, which converts to a string. This is an integer, and join it together, and we print that. Let's run that again. And it says we finished with 91.6 recurring points. Probably change that, but yeah. So you can see that it took 25 points off us, and it gave us 30 something points by the looks of things, which isn't quite right. So I think we need brackets around there, and then that should work fine. Okay. So that's pretty much it. We don't have any more time. If anyone has any questions, just get them in very quickly now, and I'll answer them. So what I will try and do is I'll see if I can make this public and share this code with you, and I'll put it in the description of the video, so just check back after this. And if I've been able to make this public, I'll put that in the description so you can read over the code. Also, if you want to, you can try version 3 where you add multiple levels to this code. But what I suggest first, because we have gone through this quite quickly, is go over version 1 first. So version 1 was the sort of bare basics of this. So what we started off with, and feel free to sort of rewind through the video. And then version 2, we added the point system. And then version 3, if you do want to move on to it, and we'll probably look at this next lesson, is having multiple levels. So we will start by going over this and looking at version 3 next lesson. And then I've got another task we can go through as well, and we'll look at planning that. Okay. Right. Yeah, so with the print statement says you finish with, it's how many points you finished with, yeah. Which isn't quite right because I think I missed some brackets there. But yeah. Okay. All right, if no one has any other questions, then I will go, but I will be back same time next Friday at 5:30, so hope you will